This episode is brought to you by Grumpy Coffee. Do you wake up looking like this bloke, a grumpy person, or this Sheila? Well, that's why you need Grumpy Coffee. Head to grumpycoffee.com.au, grab your coffee. We've got the everyday blend, we've got the very grumpy blend, we've got pods, we've got it all. Head to grumpycoffee.com.au and try the new coffee everyone's raving about.
Just a bloke in a bar.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Bloke in a Bar. I'm here with a big fella, Lindsay Smith. How you going, brother?
Not bad yourself.
Very, very good. Thanks, mate. Now, I mean, we're just speaking off air, but what a year. Where's the head at after? It's almost like a whirlwind for you.
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't really thought about it too much, to be honest. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy year, obviously. You work all year to try and win your grand final and then obviously get that job done, thankfully. And then, yeah, I guess obviously getting picked for Oz was pretty special. And, yeah, you don't get much time to reflect on the season when you're in camp. So, yeah, it's been a week now since then, and I probably still haven't sat down and reflected on the season. So,
mate,
yeah.
What I guess, you know, first of all, it's definitely well earned. So please don't take these next words as you didn't earn your Australian jersey at all, but definitely came as a bit of a surprise. Like, for you, was it a surprise, or had you heard whispers, or what was it like?
Nah, it was completely out of the blue. Yeah, I think it was the Monday, so we played the Sunday, obviously, in the GF, and then Monday morning, like, obviously, out all night, having beers, and then I live a little bit out of Penrith, so I was just heading up to the Pullman across the road there at Panthers. I was like, I'll just stay there instead of trying to get an Uber home and then stay the night, and then have to get an Uber all the way back the next day. I was like, I'll just try to stay there. So I got a room up there, got a couple of hours sleep, and I was in the shower, and I was calling me. I'm like, what's Ive calling me for? Like, what have I done? Like, thought I'd done something wrong. Like, what did I do the night before to make a fool out of myself? And then he just said, you're playing for Australia. And I think it was 5 minutes of me telling him, like, oh, no, you're taking the piss.
No
like,
way.
There's not a chance. So it wasn't anywhere on the radar. It was just completely out of the blue. And, yeah, pretty special.
Mate, I'll be honest, like, from a, like, obviously we analyse the game. So we watch every game of every minute. And what's funny is before the announcement, it probably wasn't something that I was thinking about. But when it was actually announced, I was like, that absolutely makes sense. And, you know, I know you wouldn't say this because, you're not a Derek walking around going, yeah, I deserve to be here or there. But, you know, your last few years playing first grade, like, you've been super, super consistent. You're in the best forward pack in the competition. It's one of the hardest forward packs to get in as well. I guess when the call did come through and, you know, it's one thing to, like, get the call, but then, like, I'm assuming, and obviously I don't know because I haven't experienced it, but then it's another thing actually walking into camp and going, like, I'm actually here. This is insane.
Yeah, it was completely a shock to the system, that's for sure. I remember I was talking to the missus, like, the days leading up to it, going, like, I'm so nervous. I'm more nervous for this than I was, like, for some games of footy. Like,
yeah,
nervous for 4 games of footy, but it's a completely different feeling. Like, yeah, I guess the day of, like, walking in, camp was up in Brizzy for the first couple of days, so I got there and it made it a little bit easier. Like, Yowie and Dill, like, we all had to get on a plane together with a couple of other Sydney boys and sort of seen them first, which sort of eased the nerves. And I think I was waiting in line to put my bags, like, on the walk through and then go through security, and the first person that walked in was, like, Turbo, and he's like, come up to me straight away and said hello, and I'm like watch this guy kill it for the last like 10 years now, and or however long he's been killing it for, and he's it was pretty special. And then when we got into camp, like, obviously everyone knows each other. Normally they've played Origin or even Oz together, and it's like sort of new kid at school. Like, sort of took a couple of days to sort of, I guess, feel like you sort of belong in that sort of situation. It was definitely a unreal experience, but a nervy one at the start, that's for sure.
Yeah, mate. Well, as I said, like, it definitely, once you were named, it was like, no, that absolutely makes sense. And it's because you just, especially your last 2 years, mate, you've been so consistent. So you get into camp, and I guess, like, what was that feeling like? Because you're at the Penrith Panthers, it's like the level of your training would be like, you know, it's no accident that you've won 4 in a row. However, like, then there's Australian levels of training and intensity. Was it something that you kind of stepped back and said, wow, like, the skill level here at this training is, like, next level kind of thing?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I guess that's something we pride ourselves on at Penrith, is the way we train and the intensity that we train at. So I guess I think that sort of primed me to sort of go into that sort of training at the Australian level. Like the intensity that wasn't sort of too dissimilar to what we trained at Penrith, but I guess like the skill level, like everyone's sort of the best of the best. You're playing like just like
Turbo's playing out of position, which is like insane.
100%. Like you're playing like games, like skill games and that, and you're just going like, there's no one here like that's sort of weak or whatever. Like you're trying to defend a 3v2 and it's like far out. There's Ben Hunt and the next person's Turbo and the next person's Harry Grant. It's like you don't get a rep off, that's for sure. So I guess obviously the way we train sort of at Penrith prepared me for the intensity, but the skill level was just next level.
Mate, incredible. And so you get into camp, and I guess you didn't play the first 2 weeks. I think, is it 3 weeks? 2 or 3 weeks. At what point in your head were you just like, listen, like, you're obviously probably a little bit nervous going in, but then you settle in, and then in your head you're going, look, I'm just going to rip in and just make the most of it, and if I get hopefully a bit of game time, that'd be great, kind of thing?
Yeah, 100%. I think obviously as a footy player, you obviously just want to play. Like that's what you sort of want to do. But then like thinking to myself, like, if you told me at the start of the year that I'd be in Aussie camp, like I would have paid money to be there, sort of thing. So I just sort of, once I got in there, just said, just enjoy the experience. If you play, you play. If you don't, you don't, and try to get the most out of it. And then I think obviously the first 2 games, the boys did a good job, and it wasn't until like we had a week at home and a sort of rumour mill about Cam Murray obviously might have hurt himself, and I was like, I don't know nothing yet. Like I'll just wait till I get in there, but sort of have that little thing ticking in your head, like, what if? And then, it was pretty special. It wasn't until the Tuesday that sort of Mal told me, and it's a pretty special moment. So.
And so, you wouldn't have played against. I was about to say, what was it like playing against Fish? But you would have that second game. You would have been. That would be weird for you because you've just gone to battle so many times. I guess
100% would have been weird for sure.
Okay, so you get back into camp, and how did you find out that you would be making your Australian debut? Yeah,
so we come in the Sunday and then sort of just chilled that day and then trained Monday. And it wasn't until the Tuesday when the team list sort of gets announced, Mal come up to me and just said, I've got the pleasure of like telling you you're in the 17 this week. And that was sort of before training. So I was like, obviously a special moment. I told the missus sort of pretty soon, but then we had training that day. So I was like, okay, like, what's next sort of thing, to try and like, you don't want to get too caught up and then have a shit training session and then your sort of head goes off from there. So it was just sort of, once I found out, it was obviously a pretty emotional moment, but I guess sort of had to move on quickly, and then the week was just, it was special.
And what a game to make your debut in. That Tongan crowd, seriously. I mean, on the TV it looked incredible. You were on the field. What was it like for you?
Yeah, to be honest, like that atmosphere, I've never played at CommBank in front of a full crowd. Like, it's pretty loud as it is, like even when there's sort of half a stadium full, but that was, it was pretty special. And even like the national anthems, they sung both national anthems, which I thought was pretty cool as well. That was like a pretty special moment to be on the field. But just throughout the game, like it was like you're at a soccer game. They were just singing midway through sets and that. It was pretty cool. And
so you're sitting on the bench. I'm sure like the perfect, I guess, off the bench would have been like get some minutes in the first half and like just get the nerves out. But you're sitting on the bench till like the 73rd minute or something like that. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I was
you all right?
Wasn't too bad.
Okay.
And, we ran up there to make the sub, and then I think we couldn't make the sub before they took the tap. So Lindsay Collins had to stay out there for that set, and then it went up as a no try, and that's when we sort of made the sub. And I'm like, okay, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, like we'll sort of get through our sets and we'll defend our way to victory, hopefully. And then the try got allowed, and I was like, it's a close game now. Like, but I guess obviously lucky enough to experience big games through Penrith, I think that helped me massively in that situation. Like and also being around Dill at the time, I think that was sort of the first person I talked to when I got onto the field was Dill, and that sort of just made me comfortable. Like,
because Isaiah would have come off.
Yeah, Yowie was off at the time.
Yeah,
I think Birdo was playing 13. So but I guess when I was out there and sort of seen Dill, and that sort of gave me the reassurance, like everything's
especially because like he's at the foot. Like I think the fullback's role with the front rowers is like actually quite tight because he's always telling you like you need to be here, you need to be here. Yeah,
yeah. You're just in the washing machine as a middle, and he's probably the best at it. Like, he'll let you know when you need to be somewhere, and it's not having a dig at you. It's just when you're in the middle and he heads off after a couple of sets and you're gassed. He's probably. Well, he's obviously the best fullback I've ever played with, and he's pretty sensational at just sort of telling you where you need to be and what you need to do at the right time.
And that trust is so important as a front row because if you haven't played with a guy before, and let's say he's a bit quieter or something, or his communication style is different, like I don't know, he just points instead of talking. That's the split second difference between getting to your spot and not getting to your spot.
Yeah, 100% it is, and in the middle, you sort of need everything to go your way, especially when you're rolling down a short side against some pretty fast people. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
So you get on the field, and I guess, this big Tongan pack, they're just coming after you. What do you remember from actually being on the field?
I think the kickoff, obviously, I didn't end up getting in the tackle because they sort of skipped across. I sort of wanted to get that first contact. And I was like, I'll get it the next play, sort of rolled around, and then I feel once you get that first contact, especially as a middle, like something just happens where all the nerves and everything just goes. Like you just feel at home sort of thing in the game. And I guess once that happened, I was like, I'm okay out here sort of thing. Like I'm not sort of let your training take over. And I think there was a pretty decent sort of little just arm wrestle. Like obviously you're expecting them to throw anything. 7 or 5 minutes to go at the time, and they're down by 6. But I think we were lucky enough. We sort of got in the arm wrestle. Then we thought we scored through Coatsy, and he thought he scored in the corner, and the way he puts the ball down, like you think it's a try. Couldn't actually believe how high he got. I've never seen it in person. Yeah. It was just ridiculous. And then obviously seeing the bobble, and it's like, okay, we got another 40 seconds to defend, and then we then took him in a touch and then sort of knew it was over from there. So it's pretty special.
Mate, and just to your debut to win the Pacific Champs, especially after I'd love to. Obviously, you hadn't been in an Australian camp before, but this outside looking in, it did seem like this was a very important Australia camp about pride in the jersey and getting that respect back from what happened last year. So to be able to win against Tonga, it's such a crazy game. That feeling would have been pretty incredible. Yeah,
it was. I guess when you're growing up, you sort of expect Australia to win, especially as like a young kid. You're sort of looking up, and at the time when I was a kid as well, like it was sort of Australia versus New Zealand at the time. So Australia versus New Zealand at the time, because obviously sort of Tonga and Samoa, they sort of generally either played for Australia or New Zealand at the time. And I guess now one of the good things about the game is you have those guys like Romy and Critter and all that playing for Samoa, and all the boys for Tonga, like Taumalolo and Adam Fanua-Blake are two of the absolute greats of the game. So along with many others, and it's pretty special. Like obviously off the back of last year, everyone was pretty disappointed with sort of what happened, and that was a big talking point in the camp, was about sort of restoring the I guess pride in the jersey, and like your goal in any footy game is to win. So that's obviously the outcome you want, is to win the comp, and then to do it, it's obviously pretty special, but it's also a little bit of relief. Like you sort of done it for sure.
The pressure that because you don't want to let your country
100%,
down.
100%.
What's it like? So, is there any small details of your Australian debut that you remember? Like even just little things like just looking down and going, "Oh my god, the famous green and gold!" Like just that jersey.
I think so. I was lucky enough to warm up both first 2 games because I was 19th man. So I got to put the jersey on both those times. And that was pretty special. I think most memorable moment for me, probably, I'll put the jersey on, and when you put your jersey on, you have your number like just above the logo there, and that was probably pretty special. Like it's sort of something that no one can take away from you. So I think that was probably the most special thing, was looking down and seeing like number 858 on my jersey, and I guess that was probably the most special moment, and thinking about like all the people that helped me got me there.
Yeah, it's like, 'cause you just think like 12 months ago, there would have probably been a furthest thing from your mind. Like, matter of fact, it would have been like almost like a childhood dream still in your mind. Like that's how far it would feel away. And then you're sitting there with a famous jersey on, singing the anthem and playing in such an incredible game. Like, I mean, I can only imagine. What about, did your parents get to come to the game in that?
Yeah, they were in the crowd.
What was it like after it?
Yeah, it was pretty special. I walked over. First person I always walk to is my missus and my little fella now.
Yep.
So it was pretty cool to give him a cuddle, and then obviously walk over to mum and dad and tears in their eyes and give him a cuddle, and then obviously my brother as well, someone important to me and sort of helped me get to where I am today. So yeah, it was a pretty special moment and sort of something I'll never forget.
So how old's your little one?
He's 9 months.
He's 9 months. Wow. Okay, so super young. So you'll be able to be like, mate, back in my days, not bad, not bad at footy, not bad at footy. I mean, yeah, what an incredible moment. What was something that, and obviously you don't have to go into much detail because I know a lot of this stuff is quite private in the Australian camp and in the Queensland camp when Mal was coach. But what's like kind of the gist of what he kind of says to bring out the passion in the jersey?
Yeah, I guess obviously just looking at the main thing is looking at sort of who's come before you, and looking at those guys and sort of what they've done in the past, and yeah, like even himself, like Mal's far out, like he's an immortal of the game. Like,
yeah,
it's pretty special, and just to, I guess, look back at those, and even at the time, like you flick on the Fox Sports channel and there'd be old Australian games on, and you can sort of just sit down and watch what was like, it's special and it means so much to so many people. And then obviously looking at sort of your life and look at what you were like when you were a kid, and obviously what it means to your family, I think is something that's really important. So I guess those sort of things, like you just want to do the jersey proud and obviously do your family and yourself proud. That's the most important thing, I think.
Yeah. The green and gold jersey, it would just be, I can only imagine what that feeling would be like chucking that jersey on. And I mean, I guess now you're kind of in this position where obviously you're not going to expect anything, but you've set your own standard now. Like your hard work got you that jersey, and now it's almost like I'm assuming you're sitting there going, well, I don't want to lose that jersey. You know, is that kind of your hope going forward now?
Yeah, obviously it was special to play for your country, that's for sure. And I guess it's like when you sort of debut for first grade, once you get that taste, you just sort of want more. And yeah, it's something I sort of haven't thought about too much yet. Like I've only had 1 week to sort of settle down now. So I guess that's something I'll think about over the next few weeks, is like, how do I sort of try to put myself back in that conversation to get back in the Australian camp and whatever comes with it. So, yeah.
And so like this year for you boys heading into the season, so obviously you're part of the Premiership-winning side. You'd made your debut actually 3 or 4 years ago, but this year heading into it, like what was because like Penrith are in such a unique position. Like what do you do to motivate the boys to make them sure that they're at the same standard as they were the year before? Anyway, so heading into this year, what was the motivation internally at Penrith to make sure that you stayed on top?
I think, firstly, I think Nat puts it the best. I've heard him say it a couple of times. Like once you sort of taste that success, you don't want to let it go. Yeah. If that makes sense. And I think that's like really special. And I think you got to give credit to guys like him and Yowie, Dill, all those leaders like Fish, Moss, and you can go on for ages, Romy. You got to put a lot of credit to them because they're the ones that come back at preseason and they set the standard. So if you're a young bloke, or even if you like played a fair few first grade games, like if they're setting the standard, you got to follow that. And they're sort of the best in the game at the moment, and they're amazing leaders. And I guess once they sort of set the standard at training, you've just got to follow that and then try to build on that. So I think a lot of credit goes to our obviously leadership and our coaching staff about that. But yeah, I guess also another thing we sort of talk about is there's guys in the team each year that have sort of never tasted it, like being able to put on the ring at the end of a grand final. So you obviously want to do it for them as well, and obviously you want to do it for yourself. It's obviously an amazing feeling, and you just sort of want to keep chasing that. Yeah.
And so this year, and please, mate, correct me if I'm wrong, so this is purely outside looking in, but I did feel like this year you guys never, like obviously eventually you won the premiership, but I did feel like there were periods where it looked like you were getting close to your best, but you never really touched those same heights as maybe years before. As I said, eventually you did do it because you won the premiership. What was it like internally? Did you feel that, or is that incorrect outside looking in?
Nah, I guess like we sort of felt that a little bit. Like, It's probably one game I remember where I think we played Sharks at Shark Park. And
Oh, man. Yeah.
That game was probably a game where it's like, we were on that night, and that felt really good, and thought, I guess
that was without Nathan as well.
Yeah, that was without Nathan. The year before, we had a similar moment where I guess we didn't start the year amazingly, and then you sort of get that one win that sort of turns into two, and then you get that momentum.
Yep.
So I thought, personally, I thought that game, here comes our momentum, and I guess we were always there, we were always in the fight.
For sure.
But we just, there was periods of time where we just sort of weren't at our absolute best. We had a few more injuries this year, just with obviously to our key players, especially. Obviously Nat was out for a long period of time, and don't get me wrong, Romy stepped up in that number 7 role and absolutely killed it.
Well, that was that Sharkies game where he 7 killed it.
But I guess that was a little bit of the feeling, but we never lost confidence. We sort of knew if we could just fix a few things up and really put our mind to it, we could sort of turn the season around. And I guess when you've got a side like we do, you need to win those close games, especially to put yourself in a position in that final series. And that's when not when the comp starts, but it's a different comp come final. So I guess there was a lot of games where we sort of weren't happy with our performance, but we come away with the 2 points. So I think that's a pretty powerful thing to have as well, is when you're not playing the best, still finding a way to win. Yeah. So I think we did that well this year.
And was the chat more just about look, just stick to our processes, boys. It'll click. We just got to keep turning up and just ticking it over kind of thing.
Yeah, in a way, but I guess we also had the mindset that we needed to change it. It's not just going to happen. We need to sort of make it happen.
Yep.
If you keep turning up and training at a good standard, it will happen. But
at the same time, be proactive about it.
At the same time, we needed to address what was going wrong in games and how do we fix that. And it sort of sometimes can take a while, but it definitely clicked in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you head into that final series, and you just basically you roll out against the Roosters, and it's just you guys click immediately. That first half, you're just sitting there as a fan going, who beats this side? Who beats this side? What was that feeling like for you guys, especially the first half?
Yeah, you sort of, I guess when you're on the bench, you sort of know by the first 5 minutes sort of how the boys are feeling out in the field and how it's going. And that first 20, 30 minutes, whatever it was, was just, you watch Fish and Moss out there and just absolutely tearing it, and you're like, we're on sort of thing tonight. And then I guess for me, it was a little bit, by the time I got on, I think might have been 24 points up, and that's when the Roosters started to come back. So, it was a bit, it was obviously a pretty special game, and I guess we didn't have it won by the first 30 minutes, but we definitely put in a good stint to sort of go on to win the game. And once we sort of stopped their run of momentum in that second half, you sort of felt like at the end of that game, we can, once we have the week off and prepare, we can do something pretty special again.
Yeah, and so you go into the Sharkies game, and it was it's hard to say. It was a controlled win. That's what it looked like anyway. And eventually, obviously, you ran away with it. But they were in the fight for quite a while.
Yeah.
But again, outside looking in, it did look like you boys had control of the game for most of it to a degree. I guess, how did you feel about that game, that performance with the boys?
Yeah, it felt good. To be honest, I thought the Sharks were really good.
Yeah.
Especially, I think it was for probably 60 minutes of that game. It was such a tight game. I think for me personally, it was a little bit different in the prelim. I think Marto went off with a head knock in the first 5 or 10 minutes, maybe.
Yeah. You just got on the edge.
I had to go out on the edge, and I was I remember thinking on the field stay calm. We've done this before, throughout the season, but I was in my head at the time. I was like, is it a cat 1? Is it a cat 2? Am I out here for a while, or what's going on? But no, I guess it was a game that prelims aren't going to be easy, and no matter who you play, and the Sharks turned up that night, and I thought, for 60 minutes of that game, it was an arm wrestle, but I think we had the confidence, and we've sort of been in those positions before, that we sort of know what to do in that situation, and I thought we just stuck to our game, and then eventually sort of scored a few points late in the game that sort of sealed it. So, it was a game that I thought was a real battle throughout the whole thing, and then, obviously to get the win and that's a pretty special one to put yourself in a grand final. Like,
Mental.
yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Another grand final, 5 in a row. And I guess the scary thing about the Panthers is that you guys have been, like, you've got so much evidence. Like, when a coach sometimes says to your boys, like, let's stick to our processes and we'll get them in the back end. Sometimes you might sit there as a rookie or a team that, let's say, hasn't had that many wins, and you're like, maybe that will work. Whereas, like, with the Panthers, you've done it so many times that you guys would have 100% faith that that's actually true. Like, if you just hang in the grind, the back 20 will open up, kind of thing. And it's like, it's hard to beat a side that has that confidence.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess obviously that comes off the back of obviously the boys and the success they've had over the last 5 years, and the trust we sort of have in our coaching staff. Like, trust in the game plan is probably the most important thing sometimes in a rugby league game. And yeah, I guess when you got the coaches we have, and obviously the boys that sort of lead us around the park, you just have full faith in them and just trust what you're doing and trust what's going to happen.
Mate, I think you'd be surprised how many times when you're playing NRL, obviously not at the Panthers, you've been so successful, but let's just say a middle tier side, how many times you go away from the game plan and you almost like New South Wales Cup, Queensland Cup is a perfect example. Yep. You will sit there all week talking about a game plan. You'll go out there and literally do the opposite, and it's just like, it sounds so simple, but it's actually not that simple to get 17 blokes to fully buy into the game plan.
Yeah, 100%. And like, even in games, like, you might see something, defence that you think's going to do one thing does another thing, and I guess sticking to the game plan and trusting that what you've sort of worked on all week will work. And it can be hard at times because you think, like, say your game, like, your first couple of sets might be, let's just make sure we go through the middle and then, like, we'll do this later. But then you might see something on the edge, like, especially in 20s days and cup days, you like see something, you're like, oh, there's the chance. But it's so early in the game, and all of a sudden you try to take that, you throw it over the sideline, and then you're defending your line for the next 10 minutes. So, trusting the game plan is something pretty important, and especially when you're younger and you're sort of coming through the ranks, you sort of want to do those plays early and you want to sort of show your skill. But, I guess something that you've sort of got to control your ego as a player and stick to what you know will work at the back end of the game.
And I guess it's that weird, that fine knife's edge balance between, and I'm sure the Penrith system allows for this, but, sticking to the game plan. However, there are certain players that you would allow to use their instinct. And I'm assuming, like, Romy is a guy that, Ivan probably says, okay, here's the structure of the game plan, but that actually gives space for Romy to do what he wants to do when he sees it, kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's not a system that's so structured that you have to do this and you have to do that. I think I've sort of put it best in the past as, like, it's a system that has structure to allow freedom. And that's sort of something I think he does really well with his players, is gives them the confidence to have freedom within their game. And everyone's got a game plan and everyone sort of wants to stick to that game plan, but it's about still, like, playing footy. Like, that's what you've sort of grown up to do, like, is to play footy. Like, obviously there's a time and a place. Like, there's certain times of the game where I guess if you're up by 6 with 5 minutes to go, you're not going to go throw a cutout ball to the winger to try and score in the corner. But there's a time and a place to sort of try and show your skill. And I think he's pretty special in how he gives the confidence to the players to go and do that.
Yeah, for sure. And so you're heading into the final against the grand final against the Melbourne Storm. And I guess, what's so interesting about the Panthers' 4 grand finals is the teams couldn't be more different. Like, the Rabbitohs are nowhere near like the Eels. The Eels are nowhere near like the Storm. The Broncos are different to all of them. I guess the unique thing about the Storm is that they were the last team to beat you in a grand final. And also they do, even though it's a completely new roster, they do have that reputation of, like, big game team that's going to, take you all the way to the end. What was the feeling like heading into that grand final against the Storm? Yeah,
obviously they'd sort of proven they were the minor premiers, so they've been probably the best team all year. And I guess you look back to that 2020, like, I was lucky enough to be in the squad at the time during that grand final, and, like, it was obviously at the time it was pretty devastating to lose a grand final. But looking back on it now, it taught everyone who played in that game a lot of lessons and for anyone who was in the squad. So obviously there was probably only half of the team at the time that was probably there in 2020 that got to experience that. But obviously we talked about it in the years previous as well about what we've learnt from that game especially. I think Yo puts it well, that's like a full circle moment for especially him. That's the first grand final was against them, and then you have this success. The boys had this success of 3 years in a row, and then it sort of all comes back to the Storm. So that was pretty special. But yeah, any time you come up against the Storm, whether it's a grand final or not, like, you know it's going to be a tough game no matter who they've got on the field. They've shown that for the last, since I was a child, like 20 years or whatever. There's been, no matter whether it's Origin period or whoever they've got on the field, they've always going to show up and put their best foot forward. So knew it was going to be a tough game, and it was obviously pretty special. And yeah, looking back, I think I watched the game last week, and yeah, it was a pretty special game. And don't get me wrong, it was a very tough game at the time. Yep, a lot of ball in play, but yeah, it was good to get the job done.
Mate, one stat blew my mind in the first half. It was like, I think it was 36 minutes in, and the ball had been in play for like 35 or 34 minutes or something. Yeah. It was like, what is happening here? Yeah. Insane. What do you remember from the grand final?
Yeah, I guess that, like, the ball was just in play for such a long period of time, and I guess you talk about it in the preseason and everything. Like, if you have a game that's ball in plays above like 60 minutes is a massive.
Yeah.
Like that's massive in a game, and to have the ball in play for like 36 in the first half of footy. So yeah, I guess just that, keeping the ball in play for such a long period of time, like the fatigue was obviously there, and it felt like any penalty you gave away or any error you made could sort of put your team under pressure. So I think I was out there when Harry Grant scored first, and it was like, you talk about it all week with anyone like him, and I was like, oh, like, it's all right, like 6 points, like, we know what to do, like, we know how to get ourselves back in the game, and sort of just get back in that arm wrestling grind. And yeah, eventually I think we scored the first try. Was it Tito scored the first try, I think, on the left edge? That play, I think it was like 3 weeks in a row we ran a similar play. I think the first week Nat kicked it, the second week Paulie scored, and then this week he turned it out to Dylan. Tito scored in the corner. So I think I didn't actually notice, like, in the heat of the battle, you're not really thinking about how he scored a try.
Yeah.
After the grand final, the first time I seen that try, I'm like, wow, that's the same play we ran like 2 weeks ago, sort of thing.
It was so smart, and like, to know, it's almost like a game of cat and mouse where Ivan would have known that Bellyache would have done video on that play, so he knows that the Storm would have made the right decision, considering the last week he did it. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
So like Storm were going off last week's version of the play, and they actually all made the right call. But then Ivan goes, I'm going to add a different. It's just incredible, just so smart.
I think it's like, you hear stories back of Storm in the past. Like, I think there's one story where they read someone in a paper wanted to defend GI or whatever, and then so they made a play up just for the grand final to score a try. So I guess, like, that's credit to obviously the attack coach as well, like Ben Gardner, and sort of the effort they put in. But then from there, it was just a game of end-to-end footy, and it becomes a little bit of a blur when you think about it now. But I think obviously the last 10 minutes sort of come back on and just sort of trying to defend your way to victory. Obviously, it's a pretty tough time to defend when a team's sort of down and they're just trying to throw everything at you. They've got nothing to lose, sort of thing. And then obviously 2 minutes to go, I dropped the ball, which was
oh no.
Yeah, I think it was a mix-up. Not a mix-up. It was my bad. We got a 6 again. My mind went straight to like all we got to do is get through this set. And I tried to tell Kenny like I was coming under, and then it was just sort of like a mix-up, and then I should have caught it. Like, it still should have caught it. And at the time I was like, shit, sort of thing. And then got over it pretty quick, and then obviously defended that set. Paulie took the catch, and then the celebrations was obviously something you never forget.
Yeah, wow. What a catch from Waller. I mean, Jesus.
Look at AFL.
Unbelievable. I mean, so the fourth in a row, It's actually, I think it might be the first time I've seen Yowie celebrate before the whistle. He was pumped.
100%. The year before, I celebrated when Scotty got on the loose ball. And I remember Nat coming over to me like, it's not over, we've still got 30 seconds. And then obviously to see that, it was pretty funny.
It just shows you how much it meant to them, because that was the team that beat them in 2020, so it was still sitting with them. It's funny, if you go and watch Ivan's, I think it was at like your end of season dinner or whatever, and Ivan, this is like 2 years ago maybe, and Ivan was talking about, I don't know, just the wins that you'd had. I think you'd won 3, it was after the Broncos, I'm pretty sure. And he said something along the lines of like, Storm beat us, in 2020. And there was just like a bit of a laugh from the crowd, as if to like laugh at like, mate, you've just won 3 premierships and you're still stinging from the Storm beating you. And Ivan's response was literally like, why are you laughing? Why are you laughing? That's how much it meant to him to get, I'm assuming anyway, to get it back. And then he does. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
100%.
Mate, actually, segment brought to you by Grumpy Coffee. I've got to ask you, mate, what makes you grumpy and what turns your frown upside down?
Definitely when the child wakes up 5 times a night in the middle of the night, that makes me grumpy. But turning my frown upside down is probably definitely winning games of footy and winning the grand final.
Mate, was your little one, does it still waking up quite a lot, or is it chilled a bit?
It was actually, I think, grand final week, we got a sleep trainer to try and
on the week? No way.
No, it was pretty good. My missus is pretty good. Like she sort of does most of it, and especially in and around game time. But yeah, I think it was grand final week. We finally said we needed to try and get him to sleep through the night. So yeah.
You know, it's like something that, so heading into like a pregnancy or whatever, I always had this like concept in my head of like, I'm the footy player. I'm more mentally tough than my wife, and she hasn't experienced these things that I've experienced. Like, I've done like rugby league professionally, and it's the toughest sport in the world, and blah blah. Her mental toughness through having to wake up every hour was way tougher than me. Like 100%. Way tougher than me. I was struggling, and she was just a trooper. Seeing what your wife, like, I don't know, they turn superhuman. Seriously,
100%.
It's actually insane.
100%. So yeah.
So that that turns my frown upside down is watching the wife just go absolute Super Saiyan. Because like they'll be operating on like 3 hours sleep, and the thing with the baby is that like, let's say the baby doesn't sleep all night and it gets like 3 hours sleep. You don't just get to like wake up and then there's no more problems. Like the rest of the day, if you're at work, your wife has to take care of the baby the whole day.
100%. Yeah. It's pretty special. My partner especially, I went to England 3 days after my little one was born. So for 2 weeks at the start of the year. So
wow,
she's a trooper for sure. And yeah, can't be more grateful to have her.
Oh, mate. As I said, the things that women do when they have children, like the sacrifices they make, are just... no praise could ever be enough. No praise could ever be enough. Mate, take us back to a young fella. So you were born in Sydney?
Yep.
And was it always footy for you, or was it something that kind of came a bit later?
No, it was always footy in the winter, cricket in summer. So I think I started playing at 5 maybe out at St Mary's there, which is obviously pretty like renowned club in the area. So yeah, that's sort of where it started for me.
And whereabouts is St Mary's located?
About like 10 minutes, 15 minutes east of Penrith.
So did you move out to Penrith as a young fella, or?
So I grew up in St Clair, which is a suburb next to St Clair. So I mean, next to St Mary's.
Yep.
So
you're a Penrith boy through and through.
Through and through.
Okay.
I was born at Blacktown Hospital, and then lived at St Clair Mile. Okay,
and so you started playing footy at a young age. Like, was it one of those situations where you always excelled, or were you just a normal footy player that enjoyed it with your mates? What was it like?
As a kid, I just enjoyed it. Just absolutely loved it. I think, playing at St Mary's, I was Division 2 all the way up until like under 11s or something. So I wasn't like
gun or anything.
Yeah. I just loved playing with my mates. I just used to love. I've still got a couple of mates now. Like we'd go play footy, and then every weekend we'd go have a sleepover at someone's house. So whether it was at my house or their house, we'd just after the game it'd be, Mum, can I go there? And then head over there, and you just play footy all afternoon in the backyard and bash each other up, and then
mate, the best. Like growing up, that feeling of having no responsibilities is actually the greatest feeling ever.
100%.
Could you imagine if you could just click your fingers one day and go back to having that feeling?
It'd be absolutely unreal.
Oh my God. Honestly, I reckon if there was like a drug that sold that feeling of like, because like when you're a kid, you're not thinking about bills, you're not thinking about any of that. You're just waking up each day and the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want.
100%.
Anyway, so you're playing footy with your friends, and so it was about what, under 11s, what did you get promoted into the first side, or
I
what
think
happened?
it's actually a pretty funny story. We sort of got promoted to Division 1 as the Division 2 side, which sort of happens in Penrith, because like St Mary's is like, it's a pretty strong club, I guess. Like, got a big like leagues club there, and they sort of do well on the financial side. So we had like our Division 2 side got promoted to Division 1, and I think it might have been under 11s. We beat our own Division 1 side just in a regular season
No way. Far out.
So the following year, our coach got the Division 1 gig, and then basically took all of our players up and only kept a couple of theirs. So that's sort of when we went.
So hang on a sec. So you had a Division 1 side, got beat by the Division 2 side, and then that became Div 2 to a degree, the Division 1 side? Or did you have two sides in the league?
We sort of had two sides in the league, but like, I guess we had a couple of players like from our team. Like a lot of us went up with our coach because we were all very close, and then a couple of players, obviously, the freaks sort of stayed in the side, and then most of the players that sort of got dropped went to other clubs to play Division 1 footy as well, because you don't want to be in the Division 2 side once you sort of had the taste. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So the Div 2 side, eh?
Yeah.
Do you remember the game at all where you beat them?
I remember, the only thing I remember for it, our manager, which is one of my good mates' mum, was basically said before the game, if you win, I'll shout you all Maccas on the Tuesday at training. So all I remember is winning, and then we got to go to Maccas on Tuesday to have a feed.
It's a strong motivator, Maccas.
100%.
My running coach used to always, like, he would basically say, if you beat this 400 time, I'll get you a crunchy from the thingo. And I would go out and absolutely hammer it just to get a bloody crunchy. Okay, so you get put into Div 1. I guess, like, for you in your head, because like for me personally, I don't know why, but like for me, I can't remember a time where my life wasn't just about sport. Like that's all that mattered in my life. Was it similar to you, or was it more just something you did with your mates on the weekend for fun?
No, everything was about sport. Like for me as a kid, it was, if I was at training, it'd come home to either play out the front yard, play out the backyard. It was sport all year round. As I said earlier, like cricket in summer, footy in the winter, and then if I was playing PlayStation, it was Rugby League Live or whatever on the PlayStation. So
who was your go-to on Rugby League Live?
Well, probably my best memory was the first Rugby League game, and it was whenever you play with the Panthers, it was I think it was Reece Wesser. He just used to run backwards and spam X and run around everyone and score in the corner. So that was probably my favourite memory of the rugby league game. But yeah, I guess footy and cricket was everything to me growing up. As I said, you just absolutely lived and breathed it. So it was always special, but I don't think I ever thought anything of it until I sort of got a little bit older, and you start sort of getting picked in rep sides, that you start to realise, maybe this could be a career. But at that young age, it was sort of just, don't get me wrong, you have the dream, you want to play for Australia, but it's not really set in stone at that point.
Yeah, it's not like you're waking up each day like, got to be up at 6:30 to train for Cricket
100%.
Australia when I'm 21 years old or something like that.
100%.
And so, in regards to cricket, did you make any rep sides of cricket at that, or were you just doing that because you loved it?
Like I made a couple rep sides on that, and I absolutely loved it. Like I wasn't.
Were you like an all rounder, a bowler? What were you?
I used to like bowl, like obviously bowled at the time, a bit taller and that. I used to think I was an all-rounder.
Okay.
I'm not too sure. No, it was always a bit of fun. Like, I loved it, and don't get me wrong, as a kid, I wanted to play for Australia in that too. Like, but there was a sort of a time when I got older where I was sort of playing both for a long period of time, and I just sort of said I have to pick one, because once you sort of start Harold Matts and that season's like comes February, so pre-season starts November, and that's sort of the cricket season. So, I sort of gave it up around 15 or so.
And did you play with any of the players now that are going really well in cricket at all, or no?
I played with a couple that are sort of playing Big Bash and state cricket at the time. Now, but I don't think I was anything too special, that's for sure.
Okay, so You get to, so I'm assuming Penrith was obviously your team growing up. That's who you supported.
Oh no, sorry, I was a Rooster.
Oh
Yeah.
shit!
Yeah.
No way. Walk us through that. Why were you a Rooster out of Penrith?
My father was born on Pitt Street in the city, so he was a Roosters fan, and I just followed him up until I was sort of 15, I guess, when I got signed to Penrith.
Oh, that's great. That is great.
Massive Roosters
Matty's a Rabbitohs fan, so he hates them.
Really? Yeah. No, I had the red. One wall in my room was red, white, and the other one was blue. So
No way.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about a little bit of a fan. We're talking all in.
All in.
Oh, no way. That's funny. Far out. Okay, so you signed with at what point did you sign with Penrith? Like what deal, what kind of deal was it?
I think it was under 15s. I signed a 2-year deal maybe for 16 and 17.
Yeah.
I think we had the under 15s, like schoolboy stuff sort of happens, and I think I went to the first trial for Sydney Southwest. We were playing at Westfields. I went to Westfield Sports at the time, and I was like, oh, if I get this, like, this would be amazing. Like, and I made the Sydney Southwest team, and I remember being like so stoked. And then I'm like, oh, like, that's sort of it. Like, I won't make Sydney Gold was like, for me at the time, like all the Sydney Gold players were the best of the best. And
Yep.
I remember I went to the trial and sort of had a decent game, and I was like, oh, there's no chance. And I got picked on the bench for that, and I was like, oh, like, I remember calling my mum, like, do you understand who I'm playing with? Like,
Yeah.
and then eventually that was sort of my transition. I was always back rower, like, growing up, and then throughout the, like, CHS trials, I got moved to front row and got picked in that for front row, and then I was lucky enough to make the merit side for schoolboys. I was
wow.
I was happy enough to make Sydney Southwest.
That was all in 1 year.
So that was like that progression, like, to the schoolboys comp, like, of where CHS played Queensland and CCC and that. That was like the progression.
No way.
You make Sydney Southwest, you make Sydney Gold and CHS, and then
Far out.
so I remember, like, I was like, oh, like, if I make this Sydney Southwest team, I'll be so stoked. And then I, like, literally couldn't believe it, like, when I got picked in the merit side. And then Jimmy Jones, who is our recruitment guy at Penrith, come up to me and said, oh, I think we'll have to sign you for next year. So that was my first deal. It was a 2-year deal, I think, for the first year of Harold Matson and the first year of SG Ball.
Wow. And so were there any other clubs interested, or because you were from Penrith, it was like, natural progression kind of thing?
I think you like this one. It was actually the Roosters at the time.
No way.
Yeah. So that was the only other club when I was 15. I got like a little offer from the Roosters, but I guess my manager and I thought it was the best idea just to sort of stay at Penrith, and especially with what was sort of going on and the plan they'd put in place at the time for their juniors. So
no way. Okay, so that transition to becoming a Penrith fan was legit.
Yeah, it was legit
because it wasn't just lip service. You were actually, no, I'm fully a Penrith fan now.
100%.
Wow. Okay. So basically, you. I'm just trying. If you had a song with the Roosters, you would have been the Lindsay brothers, just like the Bash brothers. You would have been the Roosters version of the brothers.
Yeah, I think when he first started playing NRL, I'd only just met my missus, and her last name is Collins, so it was a little bit.
No way.
So it was a little bit of a bit funny at the time. Yeah.
The Lindsay brothers, I'm telling you, there's something there. Holy, that is hilarious. Far out. That is actually wild. Like, what are the chances? That's crazy. Okay, so you get signed the 2-year deal, and then I guess when you left school, when was your first kind of like, oh, we want you to come and be a part of the top 30 squad, around 2020?
Yeah, so I think maybe back into 2017 when we played like SG Ball. And then I think I did like the last maybe 4 weeks of the season with the 20 squad. And then I come back around the next year because I signed a 3-year deal for 18, 19, 20 as like a junior player after that deal was done. Then I had a double shoulder echo in 2018. So that sort of put me out.
Both shoulders?
Yeah, so it was sort of like an ongoing thing where they were always sore, but it was like, oh, we don't think anything's wrong. And then I started the season in SG, like 2018 in SG Ball, and after the second round, they're like, oh, we'll just send you for a scan to see what it is. And then turns out like wasn't great at the time. So I did my right one. I think I seen the specialist on the Monday, and he's like, oh, have you ever had problems with your other shoulder? I was like, oh, it's sore. But like nothing like my right one. Then He's like, go get a scan tomorrow. So that was Tuesday, and then I had surgery on the Wednesday for my right one.
No way.
So then I woke up from surgery, and he's like, oh, we better do the other one in 6 weeks.
Oh,
So,
no.
Yeah, that was that year sort of
Just gone.
scratched out, and then I think I played 2019 in Flegg, and then my first 6-weeker was in 2020.
And was that, so I guess like, how did you damage him? Was you, because I guess were you, not notorious, but like, did you enjoy trying to shot blokes, or was it just built up over time?
Definitely not shotting blokes, that's for sure. No, they don't actually 100% know. I guess I had like everyone's in footy sort of knows what a labral tear is. I had a big sort of labral tear, but it was over time that sort of like a cyst formed, and it was pushing on my nerve to my rotator cuff. So that was sort of like wasting away in a sense.
Oof.
So they sort of had to, the main thing was to clean that out. And then obviously, because I was young at the time, like you may as well fix your labrum whilst you can.
Sure.
So they did all that. They don't really know. They just think it's something over time. I remember as a kid, I used to be able to sort of flick my shoulders in and out. Like just by
really?
flicking my arm. So
No way.
I can't do that anymore. So it must have something to do with it. So,
Far out.
yeah,
Wow. It is funny sometimes, like as a kid, you'll actually have quite a substantial injury, but you just kind of just push through it, I guess.
yeah. I guess I sort of thought it was just part of the game. Like,
Yeah.
shoulders are supposed to be sore. Like you go out there and make 30 tackles, they're going to be sore after a game. And
Yeah.
wasn't sort of till the year that I went and got them checked. I was like, I played the first round and I couldn't lift my arm like past
Oh, man.
here for maybe a couple of days, and I'm like, maybe something isn't right. So,
Far out. Okay, so the first time you got the call saying, we want you to come... Actually, you made the New South Wales under-16 side as well.
Yep.
Who was in your New South Wales side there?
the 16 side, I'm just trying to think, to be honest. I think Jock Madden was definitely in it at the time. That's a long time ago now, to be honest. Because I remember Jock kicked the goal from the sideline to make it 6 points and win us the game, to be honest. So
Did you make 18s New South Wales? Or?
that was the year I probably remember more. I played 18s the following year.
Yep.
And we had a pretty stacked side that year. Like, I think Payne Haas was one front row. We had like Zach Lomax.
Yeah, wow.
I think Campbell Graham would have played, but he had like a wrist injury. And then, we had heaps. It's like, Luke Metcalf, he was playing. He scored 3 tries that game. So
No way.
they're just a few. I've probably forgot 1,000, but yeah.
Mate, it's funny actually. I try and think back to my Queensland side, and it's like it's just so long ago, and you've played with so many squads since. It's hard to remember.
100%.
So when did you get the first call to go, hey, we want you to come in with first grade? Because that's like, it's such a big moment in a young fella's career.
Yeah, it was after the 2019 season. They offered me 6 weeks before Christmas. So that was sort of the first time I got to train with first grade, and it's pretty exciting, obviously.
Mate. And so that would have been, so 2020 is the year where everything happened.
Yeah.
I guess, obviously you hadn't been in the first grade side to know a difference, but when you walked into that first year, was the intensity just like ramped up to 1,000,000?
It's hard to explain like how different it is to sort of normal training. Like, I guess when you're afternoon training, like a lot of boys are out, like there's a lot of boys working on the tools. Like I was lucky enough, I was just sort of working as a teacher's aide or whatever, and then you're not too fatigued, but there's guys that are concrete and carpentry all day, and they've got to come to train and sort of bust their ass in the afternoon. So it's not easy for those boys, that's for sure. But I guess when you're in first grade, like your whole job is to train. So the intensity that was set, I guess, at the time, that was sort of the turning point in the career, in sort of Panthers sort of trajectory, and there was a lot of guys sort of to thank for that. But it was pretty intense preseason.
Was
that's for sure.
Was there anyone that you remember going, wow, there's such and such, like there's this star, or his intensity is hectic? Or
I remember like you walk in day one, you see like Nathan and Yowie and all those likes. Like Jimmy Tarmel was there at the time, and he'd already done so much in his career. Played for Australia, played for New South Wales, and obviously won a comp in Townsville. And like just to like even to be in the same room as them was like, holy shit, like, what am I doing here? I guess intensity wise, probably one guy that sort of goes unnoticed in Penrith's last couple of years is probably like Zane Tedovano.
oh, okay,
He was
wow.
like someone, they used to call him the minister of like training. Like he was the minister of intensity. So,
and he'd come from the Roosters as well.
Yeah, he'd come from the Roosters. So that was sort of, they'd won back-to-back premierships. He'd come there and he used to be known as the minister, and he's probably someone that deserves a little bit of credit for sort of what Penrith have done over the last couple of years, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's why he was like, I think back to that time, part of the reason why he was signed is he's coming from such a, back-to-back.
Yeah, 100%.
He's a forward, and you're always, when you see signings like that, it's usually because you're trying to build culture.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Okay, so you get into that first grade squad, but you don't make your debut till 2021.
Yep.
I guess, do you remember your debut? How did it come about and all that stuff?
Yeah, it was a pretty not weird one. It was pretty special. I think it was Origin. It was round 13. We're versing the Tigers, and we'd won 13, or maybe it was round 14. We'd won 12 or 13 in a row.
Yeah.
At the start of the 21 season, and then a lot of boys obviously got picked for Origin at the time. It was probably 8 or 9, and then I was like, maybe. And then I think the week before, Moses got suspended for a week. I forget exactly. I don't know exactly what he did. But that sort of half opened the door up for me. Like, you weren't expecting it, but you're like, maybe there's a chance today.
Yeah.
And then I've sort of mentioned it, like told the boys in front of all the boys, like who was playing, and then mentioned my name. Like I think Jamin Salmon was making his club debut. Like he'd obviously played at Eels and that, but then it was actually Isaac Tago's debut game too.
Yeah.
So,
and so the debut, what do you remember from the debut?
Like it was Leichhardt Oval on a Friday night, and I think at the time there's probably still like the crowd limits of like 80%, but it was still just felt like it was packed. Like felt like you're playing at ANZ in front of 80,000 sort of thing. So just the crowd and sort of the boos when you run out. That's probably, I still find that some of the most exciting things when I run out in a game is playing at a away stadium.
Yep.
Hearing all the boos sort of like get you tingling sort of thing. And that was pretty special. But the game itself, it was a weird one. I'd come on after maybe 20 minutes. I think Fish got a head knock, and I'd come on, and there was actually a captain's challenge. Like I come on the field, and then we'd drop the ball, and then we captain's challenge it. So I ran on. I was like so excited, and then it's like 2 minutes of looking at the big screen, like waiting for something to happen. And I think we got the ball back, and I had the first carry, and then it was obviously NRL is so much faster than this Fells Cup, and you're obviously out in your feet, but it was a pretty special one because you debuted, but it was also, we ended up losing that game to Tigers, who weren't going so crash on at the time.
Way.
So,
what's with the Tigers and the Panthers? It's
they
so
always
bizarre.
seem to undo us. So, yeah.
And so I guess for the next couple of years, like you played 1 or 2 games the first year. Like the first couple of years, you actually played not that many games. What was it in your mind? Because like once you get that taste, sometimes you can get a bit impatient and be like, oh man, I got to go back to New South Wales Cup, and I'm not playing in a big stadium. I'm not playing first grade. What was the mentality like for you in those first few years?
Like I guess that first, especially the first game, taught me a lot. Like I guess as a player, all you want to do is play first grade, and that's all you sort of want each and every week. Like that's what you're sort of chasing, and then once you sort of get it, like you want more, of course. But it also taught me a lot of lessons. Like I still remember walking in like the day after, I was like, I think I played okay. Like, and then I went into Ciro's office, like the defence coach, like, you do your review and that, and then they have like a ruck control stat of like, what's your ruck control? And it should, like, your goal is to be around 80%. I think mine was at like 40. And I'm like, like, I've got a lot of work to do, like, sort of thing. And, I guess that's probably something I think was good for me, because it sort of gave me something to work on in the next couple of years. And then
it's a really good, like, what I like hearing that, because I actually haven't heard about a ruck control stat before, but what I like about that is it gives you a really clear direction of what you need to do. Whereas like if you don't have that number in front of you and a coach says to you, you need to get better at ruck control, then it's like, well, how much better? Like, exactly. Where's the target kind of thing? Yeah,
exactly. And it sort of gave me something to aspire to next year, I guess. And then I think I come back in, so that was 2021. So we went up to the sunny coast that year, and it was buffet breakfast, buffet lunch, buffet dinner. So at the time I was like, I need to get bigger, and like, so I was eating, I was doing weights, and I was trying to get bigger, and you're obviously not playing. So you're doing fitness, you think you're doing enough, and then I I think I got to like 113 kilos.
No way.
And I probably thought like at the time I was like, oh, like 113 kilos. Like, look how much weight I put on. How good is this?
Yep.
And I got back day one of preseason, like for the 2022 season. And you did a skin folds test. I think I was like 110 day one.
No way.
Like,
how many sides? 9 or 7?
7.
7.
So
110.
Yeah, it was a lot. So I've sat there and I've like.
Sorry for just the audience. So like outside backs, I don't know about, but usually 50 and below is what you want to get to.
I think ours, day one of preseason, forwards have to be under like say 70, and then backs is like 65, and then that goes to
Yeah,
like
it's about 55.
60 and 65 or whatever.
Wow.
So I was a fair bit. I was 113 kilos, and now I'm like 107, 108. So I was like 6 kilos heavier. And I remember I was like, never felt so bad like in my life. I think I got home and it wasn't like I was necessarily unfit. Like I was still making the
times and that.
The times and everything like that. But I remember because with Fat Club, you call it Fat Club, that's just what it is. And then at the end of your training day, you'd have to wait an hour and then go in at 5:30 or 6. So you get to training at 7. You might leave home at 6, get to training at 7. You train all day. You do gym. Then you have a meeting at 4. Then you got to wait around for a whole hour and then train for another half an hour, and then you're out of there at 6. Maybe 6:30, get home at 7, and then you're back up in the training at 7 the next morning. So it's more of an inconvenience than anything to try and sort of get you out of that.
For sure. Which is, it's really smart because you don't want to towel the boys up too much because that's how injuries
100%.
happen.
And all your Fat Club stuff is normally like off legs,
rower.
It's not actually too intense. It's just more like something like keep you moving.
Yep. Just to annoy you enough where you're like, I don't want to be in here.
And most, especially when you're coming through, most young guys, you look at them, you're like, there's no way you could be in Fat Club. But a lot of the time, the first year or two, you might actually be in Fat Club for a little bit. You get out, which was me. But then this year, I was only just in it the first 2 years, and then this year was
you need a lot. You'll see for the audience, you'll see blokes in there that look shredded. Like if you saw them at the beach, you'd be like, that's a specimen. But they might be in Fat Club just because their body composition
100%.
is over 60 skin folds for an outside backside.
So I still remember it to this day. I think I was in Fat Club, and when you're a young player, especially you think everything that's going on, you're like, oh, what's going on? What are they talking about? You see Ivan and coach talking, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
And I remember seeing Ivan in the corner of the gym, watching training, and he was talking to one of our staff, and I remember thinking at the time that was the last year of my contract. I'm like, far out, this could be it. If you don't pull your finger out, sort of thing, that could be you've wasted everything just because you come back fat. So I remember at the time, I went home and I told my missus, that's it. This is the last time I'll ever come back in Fat Club. I don't care, what I have to do in the off season. I want to enjoy my off seasons and that, but I'll never come back like that. And that year, I worked my way out of Fat Club. I think I was the last one in there probably at the time. But I worked my way out of there quick enough and played a couple of first grade games that year. I think I played 3 that year. And then earned myself another 2-year contract. And that was I still think that is probably a turning point. Was that year thinking I can't ever do this again.
Yeah.
And then I think the next preseason I come back, I was just under the skinnies. I think I was 69 when you have to be under 70. So, and the amount of difference that makes to go home, the extra 3 hours earlier and recover for that time, get a good night's sleep and come back, just helped me so much.
It changes it. It changes a lot, just
100%.
mentally. And I think as well, it's a natural lesson a lot of young players have to learn. Most squads, there is at least usually probably 4 or 5 young fellas that come back and their skin folds are a little bit over, or they miss their time trial by a certain amount of seconds. But it's a matter of how do you react to that? Do you take that on board and go, you know what? I'm 20 years old, I'm 21, I need to turn myself into a professional. And clearly you took the right reaction to it. Whereas some young fellas, they sulk, they complain, they say why they shouldn't be there. And what I think is really good reflection though, is the fact that you were obviously over the skin folds, but it was your own internal, you saying, I can't do this again, rather than the club going to you, you better not, blah, blah, blah. A standard had already been set internally for you.
Yeah, I guess like no one ever told me to my face sort of what sort of needed to happen, but I think
The standard's there. You
yeah,
can
the
feel
standards
it.
there, you feel it. Like
Yeah.
you just sort of. I remember feeling just like terrible. Like I come back, like I think my fitness tests were decently good. Like I was still moving okay. It was just like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't do this. I can't keep doing this to myself. Like you've only got one chance in rugby. Like you don't get many chances in rugby league. And
Yep.
that was probably my last chance.
Yeah.
And well, that's what I thought anyways. Like no one. Still probably haven't. I don't think I talked about this time. I was probably overthinking it massively in my head. Like
He's probably saying, man, he's looking big, he's fit, how good.
100%. But yeah, I think looking back at reflection now, like having those conversations with yourself is probably the biggest thing. And I think that's one thing with like, especially Ive with coaching, like he lets you figure it out yourself sometimes. Like I think that's a big thing. Like you can go to him and ask him any question and he's happy to answer, but if you can figure it out yourself as a player, I think that's something like pretty important and pretty special. So
Yep.
he gives you that ability to sort of, he's not trying to baby you through. He's
Treats you like an adult.
Yeah, 100%. And
Yeah.
tries to let you think of how you can improve your game and that. And then if you need questions, like he's there for anything.
And so obviously 2022 you play a few games, but 2023 is when you play 23 games and that incredible grand final. What was that year for you? Because I'm sure it would have been a whirlwind. You would have seen the boys win the premiership the year before, but to be actually a part of it week in, week out, what was it like for you?
Yeah, it's sort of the season sort of didn't start like that. Like I started the season in cup. Like felt like I had the best preseason. Didn't come back in Fat Club. Had a really good preseason. Felt like I'd taken like my game to a sort of better level than it was the previous year, and played the World Club Challenge at, I think I was like the 18th man, but you were allowed to play 18 in that World Club that we lost to St. Helens at the time. And then it was the first couple grounds, and then I think someone got injured at training. I can't exactly remember who it was. And Ive gave me a shot down to play in Canberra, and that was sort of, looking back at it now, like I remember I went on the field and felt like I played all right, come off, and we ended up winning that game by, I think it was 50-6 or 10 or something like that. And at the time, like I remember I come off the field and there's a guy that I'm sort of a bit close to at Penrith. His name's Glenn Lydiard. He's our like one of our wellbeing officers, especially for Indigenous people and that, and get along with Lindsay quite well. He's quite a character, and I remember him saying like, "Oh, mate, like welcome to first grade," sort of thing, and that was pretty special because I'd played 4 games prior to that, but that was the first game where I was like, sort of felt at home as more and felt like I belonged, and then from there, I think I missed one more game against the Knights where I was 18th man, and then sort of played the rest of the season. So, yeah, it was pretty whirlwind of a year, and obviously
The grand final, bro.
Yeah.
Far out. I mean, a lot of people, I think it's, even though I'm a Broncos fan, I still think it's the greatest grand final I've ever seen, because like from minute 1 to 80, it was just stuff happening. It was insane.
Yeah, it was a weird one, like for me especially. Like, don't get me wrong, it's the greatest grand final, I think. Like, well, there's a lot of great ones out there, but it's definitely up there as one of the greatest of all time. And looking back at it, I still remember like walking, I think it was like 36 degrees when we hit the field. Like, it was so hot.
Wow.
But for me personally, like that game was, I guess, obviously the try before halftime, I was sort of involved in that tackle with when Flegler scored, and then come out after halftime, and Ezra, like as he did in that period, he just, I think it was down the short side the first try he scored, and he beat me and Tags at the time, and felt like he just, like we was in one place at 1 second and then he was just gone. Like,
Yep.
And I remember at the time, like looking back, and I watching him score in the corner as I was on the ground, and like looking up at the crowd going, oh, like.
Yeah, wow.
Like, so my head was sort of off for a long period of time, and I guess that was a learning curve for me as well, that grand final. Like, don't get me wrong, I ended up coming back on because Yowie got injured, and not injured, he had a little head knock, and I felt like I played better throughout that period of the game, and then I ended up coming on in the last 2 minutes, which felt like a big faith in Ive. Like, throughout the year, he'd always put me on towards the end if we wanted to defend our way out of a game, and for me, what I felt like I didn't have the greatest performance to him still put that confidence in me was, especially in my first proper season, was, that was something I'll never forget, is the confidence he sort of put in me. But on reflection of that game after the season, like, I was so happy. Like, all you ever want to do is win a comp. And like, it just felt like a dream come true. But there was also that little thing in the back of my head, like, if I get to that stage again, like, I want to have a better, like, performance. And I felt like if I didn't have Nathan on my side at the time, like, I could have cost, like, not. I definitely felt like I could have cost us a game in certain sense. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think, it was like the worst game I'd ever played. But like, you don't want to put yourself in that position.
You just don't want to make any mistakes. 100%. Really. Just zero. Keep it at zero.
Just zero mistakes, and then so I guess that was probably a big motivator for me coming into this year, was if I get back to that stage, is like, how do I go to that next level? Yeah,
well, the funny thing is that, ironically, you look at the Broncos' first half, they were almost in a similar boat to you. They hadn't played a grand final before, and so they were making mistakes, and, you know, they probably look back on that and go, we learned so much. And then you look at, like, even Nathan and Isaiah Yeo on that, you go back to 2020, and I'm sure they're sitting there going, geez, like, I learned so much in that first grand final. And so that's why, like, you know, grand final experience, when you say it matters, it truly, truly matters.
100%.
Like, and you can speak to that, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I think definitely helped me this year, and obviously the grand final this year. But I guess you hear from Nathan a lot and how much they learnt that first year, and obviously it led to a loss. But for me personally, being able to learn so much for a grand final, but obviously to
get
still
the win,
one
it's the best. Thank you.
The best thing ever. So yeah.
And what was it like? You know, you're down by 18 or whatever it is, and then you see Moses score that try, and you're going, oh, okay, let's not dare to dream. And then you see Critter go over, and you're going, oh my, what was the feeling like for you?
Yeah, I think so. I come off. So Ezra scored the first one where he beat me and Tags, and then he scored the second one, and I come off after that. So I come off, and I was like, okay, like, Fish and Moss are back on. We're only down by 8. Like, it's all right. Like, they'll get things back on track. And then they scored that set, and then that's when I was on the sideline, and like, thinking, like, to be honest, like, probably thinking like, oh, it's probably all over here. And then, as I said, Yowie got the head knock, so I come back on, and I'm like, oh, just don't make a fool out of yourself. You got 20 minutes to go. Like, just go out there and have fun. Just enjoy the moment. And then, I was on the, I forget exactly where I was, but I was close to where Moss was when he scored. Remember watching it, and I looked up at the clock, and I'm like, there's still a bit of time here. Like, it's only whatever it was, like, I think, what was it, maybe 10 points or whatever we were behind by at that point. Like, I was still close. And then we sort of got back in an arm wrestle. And then when Critter scored, like, I don't think that try gets talked about enough.
Such a good try.
Like,
one-on-one beating your
100%.
centre.
Like, and he's no slouch to get over. I think it was Stags. I think. He's no slouch to score a try against. And that he's such a big game player, Critter. And that try, especially, was, I think, something that doesn't quite get talked about enough, that's for sure. So that happened, and I was still on the field at the time. I'm like, wait a second, like, Cleary kicked it from the sideline. I think we're down by 4, maybe 10 minutes to go, and I'm like, we're actually, like, riding this. Like, it's not like, it's not hard, not hard, but it's not done by any means. And then, I come off with maybe 8 to go or something, and then watching Cleary, because it was down the other end and it was on the side of the sideline we were on. Like, you could sort of right behind where he was, like, looking from where we were on the bench. And you could just see it. When he stepped off his left the first time, you can just see it open up. As a player, you sort of, like, can see what's going to happen, but you couldn't tell that. I think we were outnumbered. I think they had 5 down the short side versus our 4. And as soon as he beat whoever he beat first, you could just see it slowly open up, and then, obviously, absolutely ecstatic on the bench, and then all of a sudden the message comes down, oh, get Larry back on. I'm like, oh, I ought to get back out there and sort of finish the game off. So that was pretty surreal, I guess. Yeah, wow. That siren goes, like, what are you just going, I cannot believe what's just happened. It was just, the first big one was relief, like, can't believe we've done it, and then obviously you feel just everyone sort of run from the sideline, like all the players, like which I'd done in previous years, and you'd seen the boys being on the field, like enjoy that moment. And I guess when you're a part of the squad, you want to you love it and you feel like you've done something. Especially with Ivan and the playing group, they make sure you feel welcome, and you've definitely played a big role for them getting sort of the ring at the end of the day. But in your mind, you want to be out there on the field, and you want that glory sort of washed you out there. So yeah, it was just, I remember sitting in the sheds for probably half an hour, and I don't think I talked to hardly anyone. I was just had a massive smile on my face, and
mate, and just to be a part of that grand final, like as I said, even as a Broncos fan, like I can only imagine, like from a Penrith fan's perspective, like those are the ones that go down in history. Like that'll be talked about forever. Like this incredible, like this young, brash Broncos side with these superstars that finally they had the answer. Like the answer was just crazy talent that you could, once in a generation, and then somehow, some way, you just find a way to get the victory. Like it's just one of them. To be a part of that, and that's your first win as well, mate. I guess what's the party like for you after that? Because I'm assuming you probably went a little bit harder than the second one, maybe, or
yeah. I like to have a beer. Yep. But I definitely need my sleep at the same time. But no, it was pretty special. Like as you sort of get the family back in the sheds after the game, and then I think the most special part's going onto the field. Yeah. Once the family sort of leave the shed, you go on the field, you probably have half an hour out there, where it's just sort of the squad and the coaching staff, and you just talk about the game and the season, and that was pretty special. But it was a couple of good days of fun after that, but nothing too crazy.
Nothing too crazy. Mate, what's it like being in a forward pack with guys like Fish and Leota? Will go down as one of the greatest combinations of all time. Obviously, they're not going to be partners anymore in clubland. But what's it like being in a forward pack with those boys? Yeah, it's a sense of safety around you, sort of thing. Like, as you said, they'll probably go down as the best duo of all time, or one of at least. But just to learn from them over the last 5 years, I guess, and obviously, especially with Fish going this year, like they're such great people on and off the field. They're willing to help you wherever they can. So just being able to bounce ideas and ask them questions and sort of watch what they do in and around trainings to sort of learn and help grow my game has probably it's something I'll forever be grateful for, sort of. Definitely. I don't think without that you can sort of become the football player you want to be. So obviously every front row is different, and don't get me wrong, I feel like I play a different style to those two, but you need to sort of take things off different people, and they're just amazing to be around, and it's pretty crazy. And then are they as, like, sometimes you'll see a front row and you'll be like, is he really as intense as he looks, in regards to, like, you look at Fish and you go, mate, he must be the toughest bloke ever. But then you hear stories like, no, he's pretty chill at training. Is Fish and do they train the way they play? Like, is that the way they are 24/7? Obviously not off the field, but on the field. I think there's a fine line between training intense and then obviously you don't want to hurt anyone at training. Sure, so they're your teammates at the end of the day. 100%. You need them. There's a fine line. Like, I feel like we sort of find that line at training quite well, and you sort of need to find that line because you need to sort of prepare yourself for games. Like, so they're definitely intense, and there's definitely a lot of contact in sessions, but it's all done safely in a good manner. And I think that's something that we sort of try to pride ourselves on, is the way we train. And definitely if they feel the intensity dropping in a session, they'll sort of try to lift it in whichever way that might be. But they're not... Fish, don't get me wrong, the first time you meet him, you're like, he's probably the scariest dude ever. But once you get to know him and sort of get to know his family and how much of a family man he is, he's a pretty cool guy. Absolutely. It's like Petro Civoniceva, for example. Like, you see him play in Origin and you're like, that guy must be an absolute maniac off the field. Like, and then you meet him off the field and he couldn't have been more of a gentle giant, like just an absolute gentleman of a bloke. They must just get all their anger out on the field and then they just leave it on the field. But it's just mean when you look at guys like Leota and Fish, like just what they've managed to achieve as front rowers, like you know better than anyone. Like, every forward pack is trying to get one over you. Like, that's their job. 100%. Before you run out, it's, boys, we're not taking a backward step. and yet every single time your forward pack manages to win that battle in the big games, it's mate, it's incredible. I guess heading into next year, is it, obviously no one's expecting you to play exactly like Fish or anything like that. You play your own style, but do you see it as an opportunity to step up to a degree and take a bit of the weight of I don't know about leadership, but just take a bit of the weight now that he's gone?
Yeah, I guess obviously there's not many. I don't think there's really anyone like Fish. Like
he's true.
He's probably he'll go down as one of the best of all time. So I think definitely that's a big piece of the puzzle of our success over the last couple of years. That obviously, don't get me wrong, like it's sad to see him go, but he's going for the right reasons. Like obviously he wants to be back with his family, and he's got such that connection to home. So I guess for us, it's probably we're going to need to step up, but I think it's more of a combined effort. I don't think anyone can step up and fill into Fish's shoes on their own, but I think if like myself, even Moss, and then obviously like guys like Liam Henry and that can sort of just take a step up and try to fill in those shoes as a collective, I think that's probably the best way to look at it going forward. I think that's...
Well, it's just like one of those situations where he's such a unique style of player, and what he's achieved has been so incredible that like it's almost a bit absurd to expect one person to just go, oh yeah, no, I'll be the next Fish. When in reality, a much smarter approach is like, okay, how can we almost make the responsibility put it across the whole forward pack, rather than just going, oh, here's the next guy with all that pressure on his back. Now getting guys in like Papali'i's going to be good for you guys, I reckon. But yeah, I can't wait to see. What I'm really excited to see is, as I said, you're a different type of front rower. However, what I can't wait to see is how does Ivan sit back and go, all right, let's tweak a few things that suit your play style and Liam Henry's play style. It's going to be really, really interesting. Mate, I ask all the boys this, favourite rapper of all time. And if you're not a rap man, you can say whatever music artist you want. Eminem, mate. It's everyone. Everyone loves it. Everyone loves Eminem. What's the playlist looking like for you before a game? Are you a big music man?
I like music. Generally, like especially at Penrith, I just listen to sort of whatever. I don't put earphones in. I listen to whatever's on the boombox sort of thing. And
have you been robbed like Isaiah Yo's been robbed? Now, I heard whispers that Yo, he wasn't allowed to put any of his own music on until only recently, and that's a travesty. Surely get the boys in the forward packs a chance with the aux cord.
Nah, it's pretty funny. We, especially this year, like in and around gym sessions, like the boys would make a joke trying to like get different people to sort of play music on the aux cord in the gym. And I think Yoey's one guy that I think refused every single time. And if Yoey says no, you're not going to force him, that's for sure. No way. He's got too much respect. So, I don't think it's by choice that he hasn't played any. But yeah, definitely. I got a couple go this year, but nothing too crazy. I just stick to a little bit of country and a little bit of R&B when I'm in the gym, and that's about it.
Okay. Favourite movie of all time?
Missus is gonna hate me, but Benchwarmers.
Benchwarmers. Yeah. Okay. What's the Missus' favourite movie then?
Oh, fuck, Beauty and the Beast or something.
I don't know. Man, I got to go watch Wicked with the Missus on Thursday.
Yeah, I'm due for that. So,
are you as well? Like, what's funny is like this is the first time ever where usually when my Missus wants to do something, she won't say, let's go here. She'll be like, oh, this cafe, this is really nice. And she'll expect me to work out that, oh, that means you want to go there. Because sometimes I go, oh, do you want to go there? She'll be like, oh, no, I'm just saying it's nice. I'm like, okay. But then sometimes she'll be like, no, I want you to take us there. Wicked movie is the first time where she's like, we're going to see it at this time. I'm booking the tickets. She never usually books the tickets. Yeah. So I'm locked in no matter what I say.
Oh, my problem's whenever she wants to do something and says, oh, do you want to go to the movies? If I say, yeah, if you want, like it's World War III that apparently I don't want to do anything she wants to do. So,
yeah, mate, I'm feeling you. It's, look, I will say we are oafs. We are stupid men. So it's probably mostly our fault.
100%. It's definitely my fault.
Happy wife, happy life, baby. Yeah, mate, thank you so much for coming on, bro. I really do appreciate it. And I cannot wait to see you boys go around next year. Cannot wait.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.